Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars news update. Today we have some huge reveals from Lucasfilm for Andor Season 2 and The Mandalorian, and we've got an interesting retrospective on one of the Season 2 episodes that just turned 4 years old. It is going to be such a fun time. If you've not done so already, please be sure to hit the big subscribe button down below, hit the bell for notifications, but no more jibber jabber, let's dive straight in. In my last video, we spoke about the recent Andor Season 2 footage, but since, there have been some more developments. In fact, we now have some more clarity over two specific frames, ones that have been given a much more HD look. Let's talk about one of the frames I didn't talk about in too much depth. Now, here's the thing guys, when it comes to wild speculation, I try to be a lot more reasonable and realistic these days. In the past, I have drawn connections and theories to other Star Wars shows and movies, and I still do, but not to the same extent. I try to hold back from really far-fetched speculation, because in recent years, oftentimes it just leads to disappointment, and that's the case with this shot. Some fans are saying, if you look at the background, it kind of looks like Bix, Willman, and this character who is not Vel Sartha are on Lothal. The planes are similar to the ones we saw in Star Wars Rebels and Ahsoka, but I'm going to tell you with 99% certainty, and I could be wrong about this, it's not. Because Disney Star Wars tends to recycle a lot of similar looking locations to ones we know, and renames them. Do you guys remember when we thought Maldo Kreis was going to be Ilum? How about whenever we see forest worlds like Ajan Kloss, we assume there's a good chance it's going to be Andor? So while there is still a chance they do make that link and try and tie in Ezra's parents, we know there are some other plot threads from Rebels that will play into Season 2 of Andor. I don't think this is Lothal. I would love to be wrong, but staying in line with worlds that make far more sense, just as we know we're going to see Yavin 4, what if I told you there is a greater chance the planet Bix is on is Dantooine? And considering Mon Mothma's defection from the Imperial Senate, the connection writes itself. Especially in the second half of Season 2, we know Andor's second season spans 4 years, and the event in question takes place in 2BBY, and Star Wars Rebels gives us a great indication of how this is going to go. In that year, the former Imperial Senator and Rebel leader Mon Mothma made arrangements for the Rebel fleet to rendezvous there. She wanted to unify the disparate Rebel cells and factions and make official the Rebel Alliance. The founder of the rebellion managed to travel through the dangerous Archeon Pass to Dantooine, and it was above Dantooine that Mon Mothma gave an impassioned HoloNet speech urging the galaxy to rise up in rebellion against the Empire, the speech that would start everything. The Dantooine rebel base, which would later be abandoned by the time the Empire investigated, was the very first of the newly formed alliance. The portion of the timeline before Scarif and Yavin is one which needs exploring. The struggles of founding the rebellion, what it was like gathering all of those factions, the clashing ideologies. We see this most prominently with Saw Gerrera and the more extreme partisans. And that brings us on to a major catalyst of Mon Mothma's departure from the Imperial Senate, the Gorman Massacre. Some fans are convinced this frame depicts the event and the protesters. Again, mere speculation. But yet another frame from the new trailer really getting fans talking is this. What kind of vehicle is it? I said it might be a type of TIE Interceptor, but there are clear differences. The wings are not quite correct. This could be a live-action canon depiction of the TIE Avenger, or a new TIE Fighter prototype altogether. It is a very unique design, really exciting to be honest. In addition, we have some more goodies for the Tony Gilroy series. Andrew Brooke, Kaylan Dunn, Jonathan Coy, and Rob Eads all feature in the series. Not to mention French legend Thierry Godard. Awesome stuff, so pumped. But moving on my dear friends, we're going to talk about The Mandalorian. Did you know Frog Lady species officially has a name? According to the new Star Wars encyclopedia, her species is called the Quirm Ribet. Or maybe it's pronounced Quirm Ribbit, because that's the sound frogs make. But either way, this is relevant to our next conversation. So, in the grand totality of The Mandalorian and its spin-offs, we often best remember the episodes that had wide-scale impact on the Star Wars timeline, or memorable moments. Because of cameos, emotional and intense episodes, we think of episodes like Chapter 1, when Din met Grogu, the introduction of a baby Yoda species. We think of episodes like Chapter 9, with Cobb Vanth, Boba Zama, the Krayt Dragon, the return of Boba Fett in his Tusken gear at the end. Or you might think of Chapter 16, the big Luke Skywalker moment. Regardless, we think of the most memorable episodes, but then there are those that don't get remembered as fondly, but at the time of release, for better or for worse, we very much discussed the ever-loving quactor out of them, especially when they were controversial. Such was the case of Chapter 10 The Passenger, Season 2, Episode 2, which released 4 years ago to this very week. In commemoration of the episode, some threads and discussions have popped up on social media talking about this chapter's legacy, and to my surprise, and I guess consternation, fans are still divided on it. Heated discussions, specifically surrounding the nature of Grogu eating Frog Lady's eggs. This entire convo has made a bizarre resurgence, and so I thought it was worth discussing, as I think I'm in the minority of fans who, in retrospect, actually very much enjoyed that episode. Now, when it first dropped, I will admit, I was more on the critical end, but that was only because Chapter 9, the episode before it, the Season 2 premiere, was of such insanely high quality that Chapter 10 by comparison seemed like a major dip. It wasn't though, it was a different sort of episode. It was the epitome of what some called Mission of the Week filler. When you go back and rewatch the entire season as a completed story, it's one of the show's most unique and distinctively charming episodes. It's funny and weird at the same time. Escaping the thugs on Dantooine, the hilarious jetpack moment, Mos Eisley Cantina with Pelimoto playing cards with a giant insect named Dr. Mandible, to the New Republic pursuit, and Mando calling the toilet a privy. Between creepy eye spiders and funny references and Easter eggs, there was a lot to love. And I've got to say, it's sandwiched between two of the most iconic episodes. Like I said, Chapter 9, but also Chapter 11, The Heiress, the live-action introduction of Bo-Katan, which of course took priority in terms of early Season 2 discussions. So, as I mentioned, the controversy in question in this episode surrounded Grogu eating Frog Lady's eggs that she desperately needed to get to her husband on the estuary moon of Trask. She gave a passionate speech using an old familiar character's vocabulator about her eggs being the final brood of her life cycle, and the tone was set for the dire and urgent nature of the mission, urging Din to fix the Razor Crest after the New Republic pursuit. Grogu then casually treating her eggs as just a snack was meant to add a comedic light-hearted edge, one that was of course dark in nature, but also quite Lucas-esque. But I remember a lot of the fandom didn't take too kindly to it. In a way, it was the first time the beloved Grogu was scrutinized, and to highlight the hilarious way Esquire magazine worded it at the time, they said this: "I thought we were bonded, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part, in our love of one small green child. Until this morning, you asked, no, forced me to do something I thought I'd never have to do. I must defend Baby Yoda." And remember guys, at this point we didn't know Grogu's name. That wasn't until Chapter 13. They say because the meanies have come for him too. In the last episode of The Mandalorian The Passenger, we re-meet a background alien from the first season, Frog Lady. Problem is, Baby Yoda is a curious, hungry, growing baby, so of course, he helps himself to an egg, or 5. No big deal, right? Well, it turns out, there's a number of fans out there who think Baby Yoda is a sinister, no good, fish baby-eating demon child. And then they highlight 2 hilarious comments. They better have a twist next week, where he was protecting the eggs. Otherwise, I'm gonna end up hating Baby Yoda. Then what's the point of watching the show? But making me wait a week to find out if the child is evil is still messed up. And I guess what came as a surprise to many is that the Yoda species is carnivorous, omnivorous let's say, and Season 2 is full of Grogu eating multiple species. At least he plays with Frog Lady's child once one of the eggs hatches. But it still came as a surprise to most. And I think more importantly, despite Grogu being 50 years old, for his species, that's still a baby, a growing baby. We know he's always hungry. And look, it all turned out hunky-dory for the frog couple, for Frog Lady and her husband. Lucasfilm even decided to recycle the character design for another member of their kind in the 3rd season, in the Jack Black and Lizzo episode. Season 2 is tied at number 1 with Andor as one of my favourite Star Wars TV shows. And this episode really stands out. It shows the diversity of genre. It's really through its more obscure and weird moments. Have we forgotten that Pelimoto literally demands the Treadwell droid to cook the crate dragon meats that Mando brought back, medium rare? I also just want to note, Peyton Reed was the director. He's the same director on the last episode, Chapter 16 The Rescue. considered by so many to be the best episode of the show's run. He's definitely a versatile director because he can do serious and he can also do crazy. The perfect balance of tone, an adept ability to balance tension with humor and warmth. And I've got to say, out of all 3 seasons, the second one still lives up to the hype. When I go back and rewatch it, I find myself re-impassioned all over again. One of the best things Disney Star Wars has put out. I know it often gets criticism that there are too many cameos, but go back and watch episodes like Chapter 10 or even Chapter 15, stylistically so different to the other episodes, but make the season so iconic.